How are you?
I'm doing great.
Oh,
Thanks
great.
for
We are so happy to have you on with us today. It's an honor, and especially after seeing this. And I know it's kind of strange, possibly, to have something like this made about you, but what a beautiful thing, right?
the documentary. Yes, it's absolutely. There was so much work that went into the documentary. I mean, over a year of work, all the material they had. I was just amazed. The film team condensed it all down to 90 minutes and made it as good as it is. I was just blown away.
Yeah, and of course, there's a lot of things that are in there that are, you probably don't think about all of your accomplishments every day, right? And then you're reminded of them, and you think it's a pretty good life, right?
You know, I but I want to, not to go back and retell the whole story, but
Sure.
just briefly, I love the message that comes through, that
Mhm.
the fact that I really didn't my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. I lived in government housing, and my mother would say things like, "You can't have cheese on that burger because the cheese costs 5 cents." And I remember those things. And my friends would be eating pizza in school, and we couldn't have pizza because it cost money. So we had
Mm.
bologna sandwiches. And I think, growing up like that, I thought, I want a better life, and so I, in combination with that, my parents were great, by the way. They were wonderful role models, despite all the problems that they had. They were wonderful role models because I would watch how they would maneuver through life and try to make things work for the family. And they were always seemed to be moving forward and optimistic, even though we didn't have a lot. So, having said that, I saw the military as a way to learn how to fly. And I back in those days, women were not allowed to fly in the military. So there was that roadblock. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just learn how to fly on my own. So I got part-time jobs to save up the money for flying lessons.
Mhm.
While all that was happening, I was in college. The Air Force opened up flight training to women. And I
Mm.
thought, wow, this is my chance. I mean, the timing was perfect. So I applied to the program, and not many women applied back then. You had to really hit, pretty much known about and already signed up for the military. So my colonel, when I was in college in my ROTC detachment, sent my name in for this test program, and I was accepted. And it was like the biggest turning point in my life, that I now was able to, I want to say, fly for the military, but I was in the first class of women to go through pilot training at my base. I didn't care that there were four women when there were like 500 men there. I didn't really care about the fact that I was a woman and I was in a big minority. I was so
Mhm.
happy that I was learning how to fly. And that was all I cared about, was learning how to fly. So hopefully that answers your question, but
Oh no, of
that's
course.
the story. There is the fact, I think you can, in this country, you can, in many other countries, but not all, you can have the opportunity to go from, being maybe lower middle class, you know, living on, welfare and food stamps, and then eventually find your dream and achieve your dream. And I think that's the big story in the documentary.
No, and I love that too, and especially as someone with a daughter, it's great for for her to be able to see this too and find inspiration. But I'm curious because I know a lot of people have asked you, but for everyone else that's watching this, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps or that wants to achieve more, has been told no, and wants to get there?
Yeah, yeah. So I love that question. My first advice, it depends on the person, who they are, and where they are in life. But if I'm asked by a young person, I will, young, very young, I tell them, go to school, listen to your teacher, and do your homework. Okay. And now as they get older, in high school, I'll tell them, take math until your senior year. And a lot of young people say, oh, I can't do math. I maybe if you can't do math, it's because you missed a concept somewhere along the way. So it's okay to, like, maybe take lower level math until you really get the concepts down and then advance. But math teaches you problem solving, and that is a
Hmm.
skill. And I taught math for 3 years, and you learn, okay, here's the question, here's the tools, what order do I put them in? it really teaches you logic. So I think math is important for everyone. It teaches us a way of thinking. And the last thing I would say, advice, is to read books. And we take for granted the fact that we can read because many people in other countries don't know how to read, and that
Mhm.
really closes the world. And I would say be so thankful that you know how to read, and read books about, I would say two things. Read books about famous people throughout history who have overcome obstacles and changed the world or done something different or something wonderful, that their life story is worth reading about and what they did. For example, I remember reading a book on Thomas Edison. He was an inventor.
Mhm.
I mean, he invented the light bulb, but he invented a lot of other things. And I read books on women pilots who flew, I mean, all the way back is to Amelia Earhart in the
Mhm.
1930s. And then the other thing I would say is, for young people, read books about the future, like science fiction, what could be possible, because that makes your imagination come alive. And not everyone's going to want to be a pilot or an astronaut or even work in the space program. But if you read books, it will take you places to help you learn what is it that really inspires you and what do you want to do. And not as many people read books today because they're on their phones. And
Mhm.
a phone is important. You got to have a phone, but you don't want to be all day on your phone because you're missing opportunities to read and inspire your imagination.
Yeah, well said. My co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys, caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame. And so he wanted me to make sure that I asked you your Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career. You just had to go for it and it worked out for you. I mean, you've had many, but is there one that stands out to you?
Uh, yes. The first one that comes to mind, which probably is the most important, I was 20 years old. I wanted to fly. Well, let's go back to when I was 16. I wanted to fly so bad I started saving money for flying lessons, and I
Mhm.
needed to save $1,000. But then when I finally had the money, I was afraid to call the airport and ask them to teach me how to fly. I mean, honestly, I thought they were going to say, "You're a girl, we're not going to teach you how to fly." And I actually had a fear of, what if they say no? I have nowhere else to go because I live in this small town and the local airport was the only place that could teach me how to fly. I remember saying, Eileen, you're never going to know unless you ask. And I drove up there and met them, and I was so scared. But they said, oh, we'd love to teach you how to fly. And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm here. And honestly, I almost didn't take that first step. So
Mhm.
that's not quite as dramatic as catching like the Hail Mary pass and like
Yeah.
Super Bowl. But for me, it's kind of a maybe a low key thing, but it was a decision that I made. And I think so. I had a young lady ask me just 5 days ago, I had a young woman ask me, do you ever have any doubts?
Mhm.
And I immediately said, yes, even at my age, I still have doubts. So that is human. That is just being human. You just have to go for it. I mean, you have to prepare, you have to train, you have to study, but you have to learn what it is that makes you afraid and learn as much as you can about it. But you making that first step, because you just say to yourself, someday I'm going to be, hopefully I make it to 80 or 90, and I'm going to wonder what could have been if I had tried. So that was what I would say would be my Hail Mary moment, kind of low key, but it's definitely made a difference in my life.
No, that's wonderful. Well, part of that, we talk about that on the show, is that success mindset that you have to have, whether or not you're feeling it or not, because we do doubt ourselves. So is there something that you've always told yourself that you keep in mind that keeps you on the right path always?
Is there something I've told myself to stay on the right path?
Yeah, maybe a mantra or a phrase or just, something you keep in mind.
Um, yes, there's many. I'll
Hmm.
just give two of them. One of them is, so my dad was an alcoholic and he tried his whole life to quit drinking, and it was just a big struggle for him. But he always told me to say something called the Serenity Prayer. And you can look that up. It's a very short prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And
Mhm.
I think that that is something my dad always said, say that every day whenever you have a problem or a conflict or you have decisions to make. Maybe you made a bad mistake and, what am I, I'm embarrassed. What am I going to do? Just say that serenity prayer. And he's passed away now, but that his voice still echoes in my mind.
Mm. No, I love that. And of course, people will watch this and I think they'll get something different out of it, depending on who they are, where they are in life, or what they've been through. What is it that you hope that everyone will kind of take away and discuss afterwards? Because it's just such a great story.
Yeah, so takeaway in the end, oh gosh, there's so many. I would say, I would say, wisdom to make the right decision, courage to take the first step, and then strength to see it through.
Mhm.
And those are things I try to remind myself of. And the wisdom thing, my dad was very wise, but he had spent 7 years working in a bar, like making drinks for people, and he would listen to people's problems. And I think that's where my dad got he was so wise. And I've always tried to be as wise as him. And I think the only way you can get there is by being a good listener. And as a leader, as a shuttle commander, it was important for me to listen to people. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time and you have to work mentally, you have to work hard. And sometimes you have to ask questions like, what do you really mean by that? So I'm not a very good listener, so I have to work at it. I think that's what gives us wisdom, really, I mean, to be a good parent, to be a good friend, to be I want to say, a good coworker, good leader, or a team member in the office.
Mhm. Well, and of course, after this, I cannot wait to see where we're going to hear your name next. Is there going to be a narrative feature now, or maybe possibly another a book? What's coming up next for you?
Well, I did write a book. It was published almost 3 years ago, and
Mhm.
that's where Keith Haviland, who did the documentary, there were many people that did the documentary, but he liked the book, so he was the one that initially asked me if I would do the documentary. What comes next, I don't know. I've had opportunities to write children's books. I've had
Yes.
opportunity, but there's many children's books on space, so I don't know if that is something to do. But also maybe a book on leadership and teamwork. So much of that was edited out of my current book. So my current book is memoirs, and we
Mhm.
just didn't have enough space to put all the lessons, lessons learned about teamwork and leadership and life lessons. So there might be something along those lines. I'm not
Good.
sure what I'm going to do next. I'm a speaker, so I'm going to continue speaking and talking to organizations that want to hear the stories.
Yes. Well, again, as someone with a daughter, I'm so proud to be able to show this, and I know that a lot of people will enjoy this as a grandson of a colonel in the Air Force. We appreciate all the work that goes into this and everything that you've done. Thank you so much, and thank you for putting this film out. And we'll look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.
Yeah, thanks for your interest. Bye bye.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.